No mama should have to sell her soul to save her baby's heartbeat. Tasha Williams moved through that marble lobby like a ghost haunting her own nightmare, mop buckets sloshing, uniform hanging loose on her shrinking frame, heart heavy as Mississippi mud. That antiseptic smell mixed with expensive cologne couldn't mask the scent of desperation clinging to her skin like cheap perfume. Every step echoed her shame, while these suit-wearing folks sipped their lattes, discussing millions like pocket change. Her baby Malik was dying, y'all. 6 years old with kidneys failing faster than a hope. She knocked on every door. Churches, government offices, loan sharks who laughed in her face. Now here she stood, trembling like autumn leaves, outside the glass office of Sterling Banks. This cold-hearted CEO who signed her measly paychecks while she cleaned up after his billion-dollar dreams. "Sir, I need help," she whispered, voice cracking like old paint. He didn't even look up from his laptop. For what? Like her pain was an inconvenience. "My son's surgery. He's dying." The words fell heavy between them. Sterling leaned back, studying her with those calculating eyes. "Banks don't loan to broke cleaning ladies, and I ain't running no charity." She turned to leave, shame burning down her spine like acid. Then he said it, calm, cold, devastating. "But I'll give you $10 million if you spend 7 nights in my house." The words sliced through the air like broken glass. Tasha's blood turned to ice water. What price would you pay to hear your child laugh again? The subway ride home was a blur of tears and tunnel darkness. Tasha gripped that pole like it was the only thing keeping her from falling into hell itself. Her mind kept replaying his words. 7 nights, 10 million, like she was some object he could rent by the week. Her heart screamed, "Run!" But every time she tried to push the thought away, Malik's sweet voice echoed, "Mama, am I gonna die before Christmas?" Lord have mercy. Back in a cramped Harlem apartment, surrounded by overdue bills and empty medicine bottles, reality hit harder than a freight train. Her phone buzzed with another text from the hospital. "Surgery must be scheduled within 72 hours or we lose the window." Time was slipping through her fingers like water through a broken dam. She picked up Malik's school photo. Gap-toothed grin, bright eyes full of dreams he might not live to see. That boy wanted to be a doctor when he grew up to help other sick kids. Now he was fighting for his own life while she fought with poverty. With shaking hands, she typed back to Sterling's number. "I'll do it." His reply came faster than lightning. "Driver picks you up tomorrow. Pack for a week." She stared at those words until they blurred, then whispered to Malik's picture. "Forgive me, baby. Mama's about to make a deal with the devil." Sometimes the most beautiful cages are made of gold and glass. That black SUV rolled through iron gates like a hearse heading to a funeral. Her dignity's funeral. Sterling's mansion rose before her like something out of a movie, all glass and steel and money stretching across manicured lawns that probably cost more than she'd make in 10 lifetimes. It was breathtaking. It was cold. It was everything she never had wrapped up in shame and silk ribbons. Sterling met her at the door wearing expensive loungewear and that same calculating stare. "Your room's upstairs. Dinner in an hour. You stay in this house for 7 full days. No exceptions, no visitors, no phone calls." His voice was matter of fact, like he was explaining company policy instead of buying a woman's body. Tasha nodded, clutching her thrift store duffel bag like a lifeline. The room he gave her was bigger than her whole apartment. Silk sheets, marble bathroom, balcony overlooking a garden that looked like Eden before the fall. She didn't deserve this luxury. Not like this. Not with her soul as the down payment. Dinner was torture. Him watching her every move while she couldn't swallow past the lump in her throat. Tomorrow is day one, he said, pouring wine she couldn't taste. Rest up. But rest? With my heart breaking and my dignity bleeding? Sleep was the last thing coming her way. When a billionaire wants something, he don't chase. Everything comes crawling to him. Morning came too soon, dragging day one behind it like chains. Sterling appeared at breakfast wearing confidence like cologne, expensive, overwhelming, choking the air out of the room. Tasha avoided his eyes, afraid he'd demand payment for her silk pajamas and gourmet eggs. But instead of touching her, he surprised her with something worse, conversation. Come with me. I want to show you something. He led her through halls lined with African art, masks, sculptures, paintings that seemed to scream silently from gilded frames. I collect pain, he said softly, stopping before a bronze sculpture of a woman weeping. African diaspora art, beautiful suffering. His voice had changed, lost that CEO coldness. Why would anyone collect pain? She asked, genuinely confused. He shrugged, touching the sculpture's face. Because pain don't lie. Everything else can be bought, faked, manipulated. But pain is honest. They didn't touch that day, but tension filled the space between them like smoke. At dinner, she found courage she didn't know she had. Why me? Why not some high-class escort who does this for a living? He leaned forward, eyes sharp as broken glass. Because I thought you'd say no. Your strength intrigued me, but you didn't say no. That night, she cried herself to sleep in those silk sheets, wondering if selling herself meant she was strong or just desperate. The most dangerous thing about evil is when it starts feeling like home. Day 2 brought questions instead of demands. Sterling asked about her life, her dreams, Malik's favorite cartoons, his laugh, his fears about the surgery. This wasn't what she expected from a man who'd bought her like property. You ever want more than cleaning offices? He asked over breakfast. Tasha laughed bitterly. Want? Honey, wanting is a luxury poor folks can't afford. I learned to need instead of want. Later, walking through his library, books from floor to ceiling, leather-bound wisdom she'd never have time to read, he asked about Malik's father. He around? Casual. Too casual. No, she said quietly. One night, a mistake. Never saw him again. Something flickered in his eyes. Recognition? Guilt? She couldn't tell. That evening, he touched her hand. Not forcefully, not with lust, but gently. Like she was precious instead of purchased. And somehow that terrified her more than violence would have. This is just business, she reminded herself. 7 days, 10 million, nothing more. But deep in his private office, Sterling stared at an old photograph, a masquerade party in New Orleans 7 years ago. A woman with eyes like Tasha's, a knife he tried to forget. His hand shook as he poured another drink. Could it be possible? Could fate be this cruel or this kind? Sometimes the past don't stay buried. It comes back wearing your eyes. By day 3, something had shifted. Sterling couldn't stop watching Tasha move through his house like she belonged there, watering plants on the balcony, humming while she folded clothes, bringing life to spaces that had been cold for years. She wore his silk robe like a queen, her hair catching sunlight like spun gold. When she attempted to cook breakfast and burn the eggs, they both laughed until their sides hurt. I'm a cleaning lady, not a chef, she giggled, scraping charcoal off the pan. For a moment, he forgot she was there because of money. For a moment, she forgot why she'd come. But behind his laughter, Sterling's mind raced. That night in New Orleans kept haunting him. The masquerade ball, the mysterious woman who'd whispered a name before he left for Dubai. Malik, she'd said softly. The same name, the same eyes. Could that forgotten night 7 years ago have created the child who was dying now? The irony was too cruel, too perfect. He didn't ask, not yet. But he watched her closer, studied every gesture, every expression. If Malik was his son, then he just paid $10 million to sleep with the mother of his own child. The thought made him sick, made him desperate, made him want to know the truth, even if it destroyed everything. Blood calls to blood, even through photograph paper. The framed photo on Tasha's nightstand stopped Sterling dead in his tracks. Malik, gap-toothed and grinning, missing front teeth, joy radiating from his small face like sunshine. But it wasn't the smile that froze Sterling's blood. It was the eyes, the dimples, the exact curve of the chin he saw in his own mirror every morning. "Beautiful boy," he said, trying to keep his voice steady. Tasha's face lit up with mother's pride. "He's my everything, my reason for breathing." Sterling moved closer, studying the photo like a detective examining evidence. "He looks like you have your strength," he said. But privately, he saw himself. 7 years ago, stumbling drunk through New Orleans after his ex-fiancée Chanel had shattered his heart. The masquerade ball, the mysterious woman in the golden mask. One night of trying to forget pain with passion. One night that might have created a son he never knew existed. His hands trembled as he set the photo down. He asked, "What's his favorite thing to do?" "Draw pictures of superheroes," Tasha smiled. "He says he wants to save people when he grows up." Sterling's throat closed. His son, if Malik was his son, was dying. And he'd been walking past him in hospital hallways, signing checks for his mother's wages, never knowing he was looking at his own blood. That night, Sterling called his private investigator. "I need you everything on Tasha Williams from 7 years ago, where she lived, worked, when her son was born, and I need it yesterday." Truth has a way of hiding in the smallest details, like a birthmark shaped like destiny. The investigator's files landed on Sterling's desk like a bomb. Birth certificate, Malik Williams, born 9 months after that New Orleans night. Hospital records showing Tasha Williams, single mother, no father listed. But it was the medical notes that stopped his heart cold. Child born with distinctive crescent-shaped birthmark on left forearm. Sterling rolled up his sleeve. There it was, the same crescent moon mark he carried since birth. His grandmother used to say it meant he was marked by God for something special. Now he wondered if it meant he was marked for this moment, for this impossible, painful truth. He called his doctor, hands shaking. "I need a discrete DNA test. Hospital blood sample from a child named Malik Williams, cross-reference with my genetic profile." The doctor hesitated. "Sir, that's highly irregular." "Just do it." Sterling's voice brooked no argument. "And keep your mouth shut." While he waited for results, he watched Tasha differently. Every smile she gave him felt like a dagger of guilt. Every laugh was an accusation. He'd spent years thinking he was childless, that his legacy would die with him. Now he might have a son, a dying son, whose mother he'd blackmailed into his bed. The irony tasted like poison in his mouth. By the time day 5 ended, Sterling knew the truth before the lab confirmed it. Malik had his eyes, his dimples, his stubborn chin. And tomorrow, he'd have to decide whether to tell Tasha he was sleeping with the mother of his own child. The most expensive thing in the world isn't money, it's the truth. Day 5 arrived with lab results that confirmed Sterling's worst fears and greatest hopes. 99.99% probability of paternity. Malik Williams was his son. His dying son. His son whose mother he blackmailed into his bed. The guilt nearly drove him to his knees right there in his office, surrounded by the empire he built while his child grew up in poverty. Sterling drove Tasha to the hospital for Malik's surgery consultation, his hands gripping the steering wheel like it was the only thing keeping him sane. Watching her interact with the nurses, their warmth toward her, their genuine care, he realized she'd become family to these people while he'd been a stranger to his own blood. Malik looked up when they entered, his face lighting up as seeing his mama. "Are you Mama's boss?" the boy asked Sterling with innocent curiosity. Sterling knelt beside the bed, staring at features that mirrored his own. Up close, the resemblance was undeniable. "Something like that," he managed to say. Then he saw it, the crescent moon birthmark on his arm, identical to his own. "You okay?" Tasha asked, noticing his pale complexion. "Just tired," he lied. But inside, his world was crumbling and rebuilding itself simultaneously. He stepped into the hallway and made a call that would change everything. "I need you to prepare legal documents, paternity acknowledgement, trust fund establishment, and emergency medical power of attorney, and I need them tonight. Because by tomorrow, the 7 days would be over, but the story of their family was just beginning. Sometimes the end of one hell is just the beginning of another." Day 7 fell like a curtain on the strangest week of both their lives. Tasha sat on the bed's edge, suitcase packed, heart heavy with conflicted emotions she couldn't name. Sterling entered without knocking, carrying an envelope that seemed to weigh more than paper should. Inside was a check for $10 million, her son's life written in numbers. "It's yours," he said simply, placing it on the nightstand like it was just another Tuesday. But something in his eyes suggested otherwise. Guilt, longing, secrets that begged to be told. He reached out, brushing her cheek with the back of his hand. "You saved your son's life. That makes you stronger than any woman I've ever known." The tenderness in his voice almost broke her. She turned away, afraid of what she might feel as she looked too long into those eyes that reminded her of someone she couldn't quite place. "I should go," she whispered, but neither one of them moved. The 7 days were over, but something had been born between them that money couldn't buy and contracts couldn't define. "Tasha," he said softly, "what if this wasn't the end? What if it was the beginning?" She looked at him then, really looked, and saw something that terrified her more than his proposition ever had. She saw a man who might actually care. "Don't," she whispered, "don't make this harder than it already is." But as she walked toward the door, Sterling's voice stopped her cold. "I know about Malik's father." She froze. "I know because I am him." Some revelations don't set you free. They chain you to a destiny you never chose. The words hung in the air like smoke from a house fire, choking the breath from Tasha's lungs. She turned slowly, eyes wide with disbelief. "What did you just say?" Sterling's composure cracked like ice in summer heat. "New Orleans. 7 years ago, the masquerade ball at the Roosevelt Hotel. You wore a golden mask, danced to jazz music, whispered my name when I left the next morning." The memories hit Tasha like lightning strikes. That night of escape from her dead-end life, the mysterious billionaire who'd made her feel like a princess for one evening, the passion that left her breathless and pregnant. "No." She shook her head violently. "No, no, no. You don't get to—" "I have DNA proof," Sterling said quietly. "The birthmark on his arm, same as mine. He's our son, Tasha." The room spun around her like a carnival ride gone wrong. She'd spent 7 nights in bed with her son's father. The man who'd abandoned her pregnant and alone. The man who just paid her like a prostitute. The irony was too cruel, too perfectly awful. "So what was this?" she screamed, waving at the bed, the silk sheets, the envelope full of money. "Some sick game you knew who I was and you still—" "I didn't know." Sterling's voice cracked. "I swear on Malik's life, I didn't know until day 3. The photo, the timing, everything started making sense." Tasha collapsed into a chair, head in her hands. 7 years of struggling alone. 7 years of wondering about the man who had given her the most precious gift and the hardest life. And now this. "Get me out of here before I do something we'll both regret." You can buy a house, but you can't purchase peace of mind. 2 weeks later, Tasha stood in the doorway of a modest 2-story house in Atlanta. Brick facade, small garden, picket fence, like something from a dream. The realtor handed her keys with a smile. "Congratulations, Mrs. Williams. All yours." All hers, bought with money that came with more strings than a puppet show. Malik was recovering beautifully from his surgery, getting stronger every day, his laughter filling their new home like music. She had used part of Sterling's money to open a boutique called Tasha's Treasures, selling clothes and accessories that made women feel beautiful regardless of their budget. People called her ma'am now, smiled when she walked down the street, treated her with respect she'd never known. But at night, when the house grew quiet and Malik slept peacefully, the echoes returned. Sterling's voice, his touch, his confession, the way he looked at her when he realized the truth. She hadn't told him about the pregnancy test hidden in her bathroom drawer, the positive result that changed everything again. Because why should she? Sterling Banks was a billionaire who collected beautiful things and discarded them when he got bored. She'd learned that lesson 7 years ago in New Orleans. But late at night, rubbing her growing belly, she wondered if she was protecting her heart or just running from the truth that some fairy tales don't end with abandonment. They begin with it. Sometimes the father shows up just when the mother stops expecting him. The knock on her door came on a Tuesday morning while Kasha was arranging new inventory in her boutique. She opened it to find Sterling standing there looking like he'd been wrestling with angels, rumpled clothes, tired eyes, 3-day stubble that made him look human instead of corporate. "We need to talk," he said simply. She wanted to slam the door, protect herself from whatever fresh hell he was bringing, but Malik appeared behind her, curious about the visitor. "Mama, who's that?" Sterling's breath caught as he looked at his son, their son, healthy and whole and alive because of money that came with such a twisted price. "This is Mr. Banks," Tasha said carefully. "He helped pay for your surgery." Malik's face lit up. "Thank you, mister. Mama said you're like a superhero." Sterling knelt to Malik's level, voice thick with emotion. "Your mama's the superhero, son. I just wrote a check." But his eyes never left the boy's face, memorizing every feature, every expression. After Malik ran back inside to watch cartoons, Tasha crossed her arms. "What do you want, Sterling?" "I want to be his father," he said without hesitation. "Not just genetically, really be his father, and I want to be your—" "Don't." She held up a hand. "Don't say whatever you're about to say. You had your chance 7 years ago. I didn't know, but you do now. And knowing changes nothing." But even as she said the words, her hand moved unconsciously to her belly where their second child was growing. The truth has a way of growing, especially when it's growing inside you. Sterling's visits became regular, bringing Malik toys, helping with homework, teaching him to throw a football in the backyard. Neighbors whispered about the mysterious billionaire who'd taken an interest in the single mother with the boutique. Malik adored him, calling him Mr. Sterling with genuine affection. But Tasha's secret was getting harder to hide. Morning sickness struck at inconvenient times, her clothes grew tighter, her energy waned. During one of Sterling's visits, she rushed to the bathroom, barely making it before losing her lunch. When she emerged, pale and shaky, Sterling was waiting in the hallway. His eyes moved to her slightly rounded belly, then back to her face.
How far along? He asked quietly. The question hung between them like a loaded gun. She could lie, deny it, send him away, but the exhaustion of carrying secrets made her shoulders sag. 3 months, she whispered. Sterling's face went through a dozen emotions: shock, joy, fear, something that looked like love. Is it mine? He asked. The question should have insulted her, but she understood. Their situation was complicated enough without adding more uncertainty. Yes, she said simply. He sat down hard on the hallway floor, head in his hands. Jesus, Tasha, what are we doing? Surviving, she said, one day at a time. But surviving was getting more complicated when your heart kept forgetting why it should stay protected. Some proposals come with flowers, others come with baggage and a billionaire's guilt. Sterling showed up that evening with a ring box and a speech he'd practiced in his car for an hour. The diamond was modest by his standards. He learned that bigger wasn't always better when it came to Tasha Williams. She was feeding Malik dinner when he cleared his throat. I know this is complicated. I know I messed up 7 years ago, and 7 weeks ago, and probably 7 minutes ago. But I want to fix this. He dropped to one knee right there in her kitchen, ring box open, heart on his sleeve. Marry me, Tasha. Not because of the money or the guilt or even the babies. Marry me because I love you. Malik dropped his fork, eyes wide with excitement. Mama, are you going to be a princess? Tasha stared at Sterling, this man who'd bought her body and somehow earned her heart, who'd abandoned her once and now was begging her to stay. The ring was beautiful, the proposal was sincere. The situation was impossible. Sterling, she began. I love you too, she whispered, and the admission surprised them both. But love isn't always enough, he said firmly. It's a start. Everything else we can figure out together. Malik was bouncing in his chair. Say yes, Mama, please say yes. And maybe it was the hope in his son's eyes, or the baby growing in her belly, or the way Sterling looked at her like he was his salvation. Maybe it was just time to stop running from the man who'd already caught her heart. Yes, she whispered. God help us both. Yes.
Just when you think you found your happily ever after, your past comes knocking with revenge on her mind. The engagement announcement hit the newspapers like a bomb. Tech billionaire Sterling Banks engaged to former employee. The photo showed them laughing outside her boutique, his arm around her waist, her left hand displaying the modest diamond that somehow outshone all the jewelry she'd ever dreamed of owning. But 3 states away, in a penthouse apartment in Miami, someone was reading that announcement with murder in her eyes. Chanel Dupree, Sterling's ex-fiancée, the woman who'd shattered his heart and sent him running to New Orleans 7 years ago, stared at the photo with hands shaking from rage. She'd left Sterling because she'd found someone wealthier, someone who could give her more than just billions, someone who could give her power. But that marriage had ended badly, leaving her with nothing but alimony and hatred. Now Sterling had found love with some cleaning lady, while Chanel had nothing but empty beds and bitter memories. How dare he replace me with that, she hissed, studying Tasha's face in the photograph. How dare he be happy when I'm not? She picked up her phone and dialed her private investigator. I need everything you can find on Tasha Williams. Every secret, every weakness, every mistake she's ever made. And I need it yesterday. Because if Chanel couldn't have Sterling, then nobody could. And if she had to destroy an innocent woman and her children to get her revenge, well, that was just collateral damage in the war for a billionaire's fart. When a woman scorned has money and connections, she doesn't just get mad, she gets methodical. Chanel's plan was elegant in its simplicity and devastating in its execution. She hired 2 actors, beautiful, professional, expensive. One to seduce Sterling at a charity gala where cameras would be watching. Another to charm Tasha at her boutique when she was tired and vulnerable and glowing with pregnancy hormones. The first trap was set at the Children's Hospital fundraiser. Sterling couldn't skip it without looking heartless, and Tasha was too pregnant to accompany him. Enter Madison, a stunning actress posing as a pediatric nurse, all compassion and batting eyelashes. She spills champagne on Sterling's tuxedo, apologized profusely, pressed close to dab at the stain, while hidden cameras captured every angle. To anyone watching, it looked intimate, romantic, guilty. The second trap came disguised as kindness. David, handsome and charming, visited Tasha's boutique claiming to be a reporter doing a story on successful women entrepreneurs. He brought her tea when she looked tired, complimented her strength, listened to her fears about the upcoming wedding. When he placed a comforting hand on her shoulder, just a supportive gesture, nothing more. Another hidden camera captured the moment from an angle that suggested intimacy. Within hours, both photos were uploaded to social media with carefully crafted captions. Billionaire groom celebrates bachelor party with mystery brunette, and pregnant bride finds comfort with handsome stranger. The photos went viral. The rumors spread like wildfire. And in their respective homes, Sterling and Tasha stared at images that made their love look like lies. The strongest hearts can break from the weight of a single photograph. Sterling saw the photo first, Tasha laughing with some handsome stranger, his hand on her shoulder, her belly prominent between them. The caption read, "Is the billionaire pregnant fiancé already moving on?" His blood turned to ice water. After everything they'd been through, everything they'd survived, was she really cheating on him, with their wedding 3 weeks away? Tasha discovered her own nightmare an hour later. Sterling pressed against some beautiful woman, her hands on his chest, his head tilted close to his ear like he was whispering sweet nothings. The headline screamed, "Billionaire spotted with mystery woman at charity gala." She collapsed into a chair at her boutique, hands protectively covering her belly as tears streamed down her face. Here she was, 7 months pregnant, planning their wedding, believing in their future, while he was apparently reliving his bachelor days. Neither called the other, neither asked for explanations. The hurt cut too deep. The betrayal felt too real. Sterling threw himself into work, staying at the office until midnight, drinking scotch and staring at the photo that made his love look like a lie. Tasha closed the boutique early and spent the evening on her couch crying into Malik's shoulder while he patted her hair and asked why she was sad. "Sometimes grown-ups make mistakes, baby. Sometimes they hurt the people they love most." But what they didn't know was that 3 states away, Chanel was raising a glass of champagne, toasting the success of her perfectly orchestrated revenge. When love dies, it doesn't go quietly. It screams and bleeds and takes everything beautiful with it. 3 days of silence stretched between them like a canyon. Neither knew how to cross. Sterling moved back into his mansion, sleeping alone in sheets that still smelled like Tasha's perfume. She stayed in their house because it was theirs now, bought with love instead of guilt. But everything felt empty without his laughter filling the rooms. Malik kept asking when Mr. Sterling was coming back. Tasha didn't have answers. How do you explain to a 7-year-old that grown-ups sometimes destroy the best things in their lives over misunderstandings and wounded pride? The wedding invitation sat unopened on her kitchen table, mocking her with their elegant script and promises of forever. She should cancel everything. Call the church, the caterer, the florist, tell them the fairy tale was over before it really began. But something in her heart whispered, wait. Some stubborn, foolish part of her that still believed in miracles and second chances. Sterling wasn't faring any better. He'd driven past her boutique twice, wanting to go in, to demand explanations, to fight for what they'd built. But every time he saw that photo, his pride reared up like a wounded animal. She'd said she loved him, then found comfort in another man's arms the moment things got difficult. Maybe he'd been wrong about her. Maybe she was just like Chanel after all, beautiful, charming, and ultimately faithless. But late at night, staring at Malik's drawing on his refrigerator, a stick figure family labeled Mama, Mr. Sterling, and Baby,
His heart whispered that he was making the biggest mistake of his life. Sometimes salvation arrives in a three-piece suit carrying a folder full of evidence and a guilty conscience. Marcus Williams had been Sterling's college roommate, his best man at the wedding that never happened with Chanel, and the only person brave enough to tell a billionaire when he was being an idiot. He found Sterling at his office at 2 a.m., drinking expensive scotch and staring at security footage of the hospital where his son was born. "Man, you look like hell," Marcus said, settling into the chair across from Sterling's desk. "When's the last time you ate something that wasn't liquid?" Sterling didn't look up. "She played me, Marcus, just like Chanel did. I should have known better." Marcus pulled out his phone and showed Sterling a different photo, the same charity gala, but this shot showed the mystery woman clearly leaving with another man, wedding ring visible on her ring. "Your mystery seductress is married, bro. And according to my sources, she was hired to get close to you." Sterling's head snapped up. "What are you talking about?" "I did some digging. Your ex-fiancée, Chanel, has been busy. She hired actors, Sterling, professional ones, set up both you and Tasha to look guilty when you're both innocent." Marcus dropped a folder on the desk. Inside were contracts, payment receipts, and photos showing the elaborate setup. "Chanel played you both. The question is, are you going to let her win?" Sterling stared at the evidence, his hands shaking with rage and relief and desperate hope. He'd thrown away his family over lies. He'd let pride blind him to the truth. And now, with less than 2 weeks until their wedding, he had to find a way to win back the woman he'd lost through his own stupidity. But as he reached for his phone to call Tasha, a text message flashed across the screen that made his blood run cold. "If you marry her, you'll both regret it. Some secrets are worth killing for."
What do you think Chanel will do next to destroy Sterling and Tasha's wedding? Drop your predictions below. The wildest guess gets penned. That threatening text from Chanel said, "Some secrets are worth killing for." What secret do you think she's hiding? Sterling just discovered the truth about the setup. But will Tasha believe him when he shows up at her door? To be continued. Watch out for part 2.
Thank you for watching. Please let us know where you are watching from, so we can say thanks. Please don't forget to subscribe.